Hello and a warm welcome. You're watching India Tonight with me, Jude Sanith, and my colleague Shibani Garat joining us from our studios in Mumbai. It's the end of the monsoon session of Parliament, which concluded today. In total, 12 bills were passed in this session, but only one bill actually got passed after a debate. In fact, continuous disruptions and chaos in the Indian Parliament led to 11 bills being passed without even a semblance of a proper debate. In fact, the sloganeering and protests that pretty much made their appearance at Parliament session this year led to just 19% productivity in the Lok Sabha and a dismal 39% productivity in the Rajya Sabha. So Shibani, it seems like our netas make their way to the lower house and the upper house of the Parliament, intend to debate and pass legislation, but very little actually occurs given the political din that surrounds us and has been the case for the last month or so.
Absolutely, Jude. Now, approximately 92 hours, in fact, were lost in Lok Sabha and over 69 hours were lost in Rajya Sabha. Key bills like the FCRA were pushed to the Joint Parliamentary Committee. Bills like Women's Reservation Bill and delimitation that were expected to be brought back did not see the light of the day. The absence of debate is nothing but a loss to the taxpaying citizen of India who expects the lawmakers to take their grievances and present it in the temple of democracy. And we discuss this tonight with our panel of guests. First, we have Lakshmi Ashwin Gowda. She's a BJP spokesperson. Then we have Nikhil Jain. He's a political commentator. And we have Aditi Fadnis. She is a senior journalist. Thank you so much for joining us today on ET Now. Let's go over to you, Mr. Jain. Now, if you look at it, 175 crore with near zero output. Now, if we were and if this was corporate, and if corporates delivered this kind of zero output, the board members would be fired. Why should a taxpayer tolerate this?
I'm not so sure if right now we're going to be wanting the resignation of the Lok Sabha Speaker and the Prime Minister as well. Well, that was on a lighter note. That being said, see, Shivani, this entire idea of a productivity index for the Parliament or for any state assembly, I feel it's quite flawed. We all need to understand that Parliament has multiple functions. Legislative business is one of its purposes. Passing bills, passing amendments, appealing bills, and changing laws is one of its purposes. The key and the most important purpose of a Parliament, especially in a Westminster system of democracy, is to hold the government to account. And oppositions across the world, including in India, including before 2014, employed all sorts of tactics to make sure that the government is held accountable, as is their job. To look at the functioning and productivity of the parliament only on the basis of the number of bills passed and the number of minutes of discussion on a particular legislative draft that was put before the government is like trying to value the Facebook stock on the basis of the physical assets it's own. Facebook's value doesn't lie in the land or the building that it owns. It lies in the data that it owns. It lies in the intangible brand value of the Facebook asset that Facebook, Instagram, and the other assets the company called Meta owns. Likewise, in the parliament, the key value of the parliament is that my member of parliament raises my voice. The opposition of the country raises the voice, the counter view in the country other than the view of the government. And that is what we saw beautifully happening this time around in the parliament. The opposition put the government to dock. For the first time in 12 years, a minister was made to resign because of incompetence, something that has happened for the first time. MJ Akbar's resignation is a slightly different case. And also, we saw the FCRA bill being sent to the JPC, where again the opposition has managed to put its view forward to the government and made the government want to reconsider what it has done. I don't think this was a fraud session of the parliament. I think this was a fabulous session of the parliament. Of course, it's a win for the opposition and not for the government that for the longest of time, Amit Shah did not appear in the parliament, did not answer questions that were being posed by the opposition on behalf of the people. So let's not see it as 92 hours lost and 69 hours lost. Let's see it as 92 hours of protest, 69 hours of protest, and protest is the founding building block of any democracy.
Nikhil, you couldn't have put it any better, because the fact is that if the parliament is truly the heart and soul of our democracy, surely it's where the angst that the country feels must perhaps be most expressed. And in fact, Aditi, if I could come over to you next. The fact is, it isn't exactly, unusual for parliament to have such abysmal productivity numbers. I mean, if productivity is an index we're going by for whatever it's worth. In fact, I'm looking at the numbers here. While the 2026 monsoon session in the Lok Sabha saw about 19% productivity, the 2021 monsoon session saw about 21%. The 2015 monsoon session in the Rajya Sabha actually saw 9% productivity. So we have had years where there's been a very similar index of dismal productivity as far as the parliament is concerned. But surely, like Nikhil was mentioning, it's led to some very tangible gains. The amendment to the examination legislation, of course, was tabled and passed. As is the case with the FCRA, sent to a joint parliamentary committee. These were major issues. These were issues that perhaps required a lot of discussion, a lot of debate, a lot of push and pressure as well, given how possibly polarizing they would eventually turn out to be. So all in all, despite the numbers, you'd say a pretty decent parliament in terms of the heart and soul of democracy being felt and expressed, Aditi.
It's disappointing that the government thinks that because 12 bills were passed with an average of 15 minutes of discussion, apart from the exam bill, is a big feather in its cap. It's disappointing to see that. But having said that, I completely agree with Mr. Jain that it's much more, Parliament is much more than just a talking shop where everyone has the right to express their opinion and expresses it notwithstanding the time frame and the amount of time they are given and so on and so forth. It's much more than that. But having said that, the onus of running parliament is largely with the government. It is armed with a huge ministry to do precisely that, to run parliament. And if it does not run through parliamentary means, if the government is afraid that it will be shouted down, then it has to do negotiation. It has to go behind the scenes, hold out a hand to the opposition and create conditions where parliament can work. It is the job of the opposition to raise issues which are in opposition to the government, and it is the government's job to push forward an agenda that it feels should be followed. So I am not. I mean, it's the lack of discussion is a problem, but as you yourself said, the Joint Parliamentary Committee.
Absolutely, point taken. Let's take this question also to Lakshmi Ashwin Gowda. She is a BJP spokesperson. Now, you have repeatedly blamed opposition for running away from debates. But, if you truly wanted a discussion and a debate, then why did your floor managers rush through 11 out of the 12 bills without any discussion?
Thanks for having me here, Shivani. The recently concluded parliamentary monsoon session has witnessed two contrasting pictures. On the one hand, our government was completely dedicated. It has shown its resilience. It has shown its commitment to run the business through the parliamentary delivery, the legislative delivery. On the other hand, the opposition has totally resorted to derailment, disruption, and all sorts of drama just to grab the headline. That's it. Parliamentary 7,000, despite in the midst of 7,000 minutes of wastage of the parliamentary time, we could able to pass 12 bills unhindered. That shows our executive resilience, that shows our executive efficiency. Parliament run based on the discussion. Our democracy works based on the debate, discussion, and dissent, not on the derailment, drama, or the dysfunctioning or the disruption. The Congress government the Congress party has completely resorted to disruption because it didn't want to get the answer, because it didn't want to get exposed in front of the people. It didn't want to get expose its political vendetta or political narrative or the propaganda, whatever it is. The functioning of the democracy depends solely on the discussion and the debate, not on the derailment as done by the Congress party. On the other hand, the responsibility for the mere 19% of the Lok Sabha productivity or 67% of the Rajya Sabha productivity has completely depended on the Congress party being run away from the natural debate. Our legislature bench, our treasury bench, as always invited for the discussion, but they constantly run away because they have a constant chronic phobia about the discussion. They are two-faced. The Congress party is so much hypocritic that when Congress run in all the Congress ruled states and the past UPA regime has always stonewalled the discussions. It is we.
Ma'am,
BJP
but
government,
all
and
that
it is our
happened this
NDA
time was discussion
dispensation.
on some key bills. That is what we are saying, that there was a discussion on some of the key bills,
that's
but
what
there
our
were 11.
Parliamentary affairs minister and our home minister and other ministers has invited them for the discussion. They constantly run away from the discussions. They come with the placards, they charged into the wells, and they raised the sloganeering. They didn't want to get exposed. They didn't want to get the answers. They just want to disrupt, to grab the headline. That's it. They wasted the taxpayers' money. They wasted the parliamentary hours that was otherwise dedicated for the
Lakshmi,
smooth functioning of the democracy.
Lakshmi Gowda, the fact is that while you say that the opposition has largely been running away or has been disrupting the House, I don't know if my memory serves me right, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but for the longest time, if you recall, the opposition members were demanding the presence of the Home Minister while the protests were on at Jantar Mantar to make himself available at Parliament. So surely accountability was called for, even by way of physical presence by members of the opposition. So isn't it ironic that you talk about opposition members not turning up, running away, and causing disruptions to the House?
See, we were ready to give them the answer. We believe in democracy. We believe in legislative hours. We believe in the legislative delivery. And we have invited them to give them the answers. It is the responsibility of them to come and listen to us. It is responsibility of them to give the nation. It's a debate for the sake of the nation. We actually dedicate our parliamentary proceedings for the sake of the nation. They ran away. They shied away from their responsibility. It is really shame on them. They really didn't want to get any sort of answers because they would only get exposed. If they really try to get the real answers, the actual reason behind it, we were ready to give them the answers. All of us were ready. Our ministers were ready. Our home minister has called them openly to come inside the parliament and to discuss.
Right. Let's go over to Nikhil Jain. He wants to add a point over here. And Nikhil, while we are at it, help us understand. I have a question for you also at the same time. Should we stick to fixed parliamentary schedules, much like what UK and US have, to also avoid the wastage of taxpayers' money? Also answer that for us, but make your point right now.
Shibani, I genuinely feel we need to have stricter schedules, stricter accountability in the parliament, and I'm saying that for the government as well as for the opposition members. The kind of cavalier manner we've been treating the parliament in the past 10 to 12 years, and perhaps also the past several decades, I don't think that is the sign of a healthy democracy. I think we need to hold our members of parliament more to account that why are you not going to parliament? Why is your attendance below a 50%? Why is there no 0 hour where the prime minister has to answer? How is it that a very important bill can be introduced by the MOS and not by the cabinet minister? I think these change in rules does need to happen, and I think the government and opposition should ideally work together on that. But again, that's a very utopian dream to have. That being said, I do agree with my friend from the BJP on one point, that the government showed exemplary executive efficiency. Indeed, they did. They are a government which is able to pass a bill that would affect the entire country in less than a minute. I don't think any country has that level of efficiency and quickness. The problem is it efficacious? You are very efficient. You can do something in 10 seconds, which other people take 10 hours to do. But what you're doing, is that right? Is that good? Is that enough? Because parliament, like we've discussed, even for the legislative business, is a forum for discussion, is a forum for disagreement, is a forum to bring in amendment. But if all that you want to do is pass bills without any discussion, without taking into account whatever suggestions the opposition and other non-ruling party members of the parliament have for you, then what really is the point of even having a parliament? Because everybody knows that the government does have the numbers. The government can pass any bill whenever it wants. Then what is the point of having all these seats, speaker systems, a speaker, this, that? Let's all just sign on a piece of paper. Let the ruling party members sign on a piece of paper, and any legislative business would be passed. But that's not what the purpose of a parliament is. And also, she says that the UPA and the Congress in the past have not, shown a penchant for discussing in the parliament. That's very wrong. They had fabulous discussions, and might I remind my friend from the BJP of the discussions that Atal ji, Sushma ji, Jaitley ji did in the parliament. Fabulous speeches by members of the opposition back then, which were very well allowed by the government back then, the speaker back then, and were responded to. Lastly, she says that it's the responsibility of the opposition to come and listen to the government. I'm sorry, it is not the responsibility of the opposition to only listen to the government. It is the responsibility of the opposition to question the government. The responsibility of the government is to answer the questions. But for an 18-day session, the Home Minister cannot not show up in the Parliament for the first 17 days when there are such pressing questions on his role and involvement, either incompetence or deliberate complicity in the police brutality that happened on the students on the very first day of the Parliament. Where is the responsibility for the government? Is all the responsibility in this country only for opposition members? Is my problem. That's the narrative that the BJP wants around it.
I definitely want to go over to Aditi Fadnis next, but what I will do is I will give Lakshmi Gowda a chance to respond to Nikhil. Lakshmi, I think the most standout part of what you said was executive resilience, and I think even Nikhil harped on that for a little bit. Should parliamentary be the venue for executive resilience in the first place? Surely the cabinet is the hallmark and the home ground of the Indian executive, but the parliament ought to be the home of democratic resilience. And if democracy lies in debate and spirited opposition, so be it. Surely it's not the place for executive resilience to be tom-tommed about as if it is perhaps the most striking feature of your parliament, which needs to be written home about. If you could just respond to the points that Nikhil was making over there, Lakshmi, before I go on to Aditi.
As I already told that, our democracy thrives on debate. Our democracy thrives on discussion. Our democracy thrives on debate and deliberations, discussions, not on the disruption, derailment, or the running away or creating a political drama. Our political culture has been totally vitiated by the coalition compulsions, and the myopic vision of the political party. They could not rise above the party politics and do the national development. Why would they even resort to the party politics, disruptive politics? Why do they even vitiate the political culture of the greatest country like India, the vibrant democracy like India? They are the blot and the blemish.
Let's go over to Aditi Fadnis over here and help us understand who takes the primary blame for this kind of specific institutional failure, because obviously there is going to be a blame game. Opposition is disruptive is what our fellow panelist was saying, but there is no healthy parliamentary session without a debate. So who takes the blame for this kind of productivity during a parliamentary session?
Well, apparently nobody takes the blame. I mean, they're all gloating over the fact that the parliament has done, past 12 bills, and despite disruption, the opposition is saying we have held the government to account. Because of us, one minister resigned. So, I mean, in this situation, both are winners if that such a thing is possible. But that said, it is very distressing that the government is happy that 12 bills have been passed with so little discussion, and the opposition is happy that they made a minister resign. The ultimate losers, I think, are you and me, because the institution has not done what it is supposed to do, which is to gain institutional experience, to address issues using the collective might of the brains and the experience of the House as legislators, and just make India a better place to live.
I have to go back to Lakshmi. Lakshmi, I believe you wanted to add something to what you were saying a little earlier before we briefly lost you for a bit. Please go ahead, Lakshmi.
The opposition parties, the myopic vision opposition parties has only deceived the people of this country by constantly disrupting the question hour and the 0 hour that was meant for the discussions of the public issues. That was of the public importance. They have not just deceived themselves, they also deceived the people of this country. And they've deceived them, and they've caused utter disregard to the democracy of this country. vibrant functioning of the democracy of this country. It's shame on them. That's the only thing I would like to say about them.
Right, Nikhil, you wanted to make a point.
Shivani, I also believe that the opposition should not have disrupted the parliament in the 0 hour. They should have allowed questions to be asked. But my question remains simple. When the Home Minister of the country treats parliament in such a cavalier manner that for pretty much the entirety of the session he chooses to not come, when the Prime Minister chooses to bunk the parliament for most of the session, is that all right? What do you expect the opposition to do? Do you expect the opposition to just say, okay, sir, yes, sir, sorry, sir, Prime Minister, sir, Home Minister, sir, you will not attend the parliament, but we'll sit down here with a finger on our lips and we'll not disrupt the question hour, 0 hour? Is that how you want the opposition of the country to function? Or do you want them to be strong? Do you want them to be
At this
aggressive?
point, I would like to ask ma'am Aditi Fadnis over here, help us understand, should there be no work, no pay, which all of us corporate employees have this policy right here. Shall we have this in the parliament for, as a penalty for causing unnecessary disruptions which are not valid, and the no-show inside the parliament, should that be there? Should the ministers be held accountable for not being present when critical bills are discussed? No work, no show, no pay.
So, as we say in journalism, there are about 5 stories trying to get out of the issues that you've just flagged. First of all, the Home Minister's presence was desired as a way of clarifying the situation, and he opted not to appear in Parliament, barring certain conditions that he laid down. I'm afraid it's not up to him to decide in what conditions he can appear in Parliament, in what conditions he should be present, and in what conditions he should not be present. This is a matter that is not dependent on him. Secondly, I don't think it's a good idea at all to have a docking of pay. If you reach your office, 10 minutes late, a certain percentage of your salary is docked. I don't think that's the way Parliament functions, and I don't think it's a good idea at all. Thirdly, yes, there are people who are present in Parliament who have never spoken in their entire tenure. Some I could cite names, but I would rather not. There are people who have only shouted in Parliament and have done little else apart from disruption. So it's not that you are present and you are adding something to what is going on the floor of the House. It's much more than that, and I don't think these kind of restrictions will make the working of Parliament more efficient. I think everyone is doing what they're supposed to do, and it's both up to the opposition and the government to figure out the best way in which they are representing their constituency, whatever it might be.
Right. Lakshmi, coming over to you next. Now, while what you say about the opposition playing disruptor to Parliament is no doubt a point to be considered and debated over for sure, but I sometimes wonder if the government is perhaps giving room for that in the first place. I'm looking at some numbers even as we speak. In the UPA 1 and UPA 2 eras, nearly 60% of bills discussed were actually referred to committees. And in the UPA 2 era, a whopping 71% of all legislation that was discussed was actually passed on to a joint parliamentary committee for further study before it was actually going to be made into policy and law that governs the country. I'm looking at the numbers for both NDA 1, NDA 2, a dismal 25%, 16%. So I sometimes wonder, is the disruption, is the debate, is the raising of voice largely because the NDA governments have largely been a law or a force unto themselves? The non-partisan nature of the way they go about conducting themselves, passing the bills, looking at legislation. The FCRA itself, after great struggle, it was actually moved to a JPC. The government was unwilling to budge for the longest time. So I sometimes wonder, is the government bringing this upon itself in terms of giving the opposition more room to raise its voice by simply being very perhaps partisan when there's ample potential for non-partisan, more inclusive and more committee-driven approach before passing laws? Lakshmi.
we, the people of India, are very much aware of the fiasco of both UPA 1 and UPA 2 regimes. But going by your lines, if at all, if UPA 1 and UPA 2 regimes has given certain percentage of bills to the Joint Parliamentary Committee, that was because of the responsible opposition we were then. That was because of we believed in the democratic values of this country. That was because we were available in the parliament, and the floor of the house to allow the smooth proceedings of the legislative proceedings. That was because we were the responsible and the most accountable opposition then. Coming to the point,
BJP
under
also
the able
staged
leadership of our
walkouts
central
in the
government,
two UPA governments.
central government, we are the fourth largest economy now. From the fragile 5 to we are the fourth largest economy now, because that shows our efficiency, executive efficiency. And we are following the robust foreign policy now. And we are having the utmost foreign policy, internal security now. That shows our executive resilience. That shows our executive efficiency. That shows the legendary and visionary leadership of Narendra Modi ji.
Right.
That there has to be a responsible opposition too. If there is a responsible and accountable,
Right. I can see Nikhil over there raising his hand to make a point.
Opposition too.
If you can quickly make it, because we're running short on time.
That is so pivotal and
Shivani,
essential part of the parliament, democracy.
Shivani, I think the problem of the approach of the BJP shows in the approach of the spokesperson. Again, she's back to the point of executive resilience, executive efficiency. They simply don't understand that in a Westminster system, Parliament has a different function. And you say that a lot of the bills were sent to the JPCs back then in the UPA era because of your responsible opposition.
Nikhil,
Most
I'm
of them
afraid
were also
we'll
sent
have to
because of
wrap up
coalition
this.
compulsion.
Sorry, right. I'm afraid we'll have to wrap up this conversation, but thank you so much for joining us today on ET Now. All of you, thanks again for joining us.